Hello everyone, welcome back to Powerful Nothing and Magic the Gathering Cube podcast. I'm your host Dan, and as always, I'm joined by James. James, how are you doing this week? You well?
I am well. We're talking about some spicy cards today, Dan.
We are. Some of the cards we're going to be talking about today are technically some of the most powerful cards in all of Cube. Today, we're going to be doing a bit of a overview, or a bit of kind of like a tips guide on playing Conspiracies in Cube. We'll also, at the end of the show, do a quick overview of Cube Clash, because James was up in Birmingham last weekend. We're going to have a quick touch base on how that went. From everything I've heard, fantastically.
It was a lot of fun. There was not a lot of winning. I'm down for it.
You were finally beaten at a Cube Clash, James. I'm terribly sorry about that.
Emphatically and repeatedly.
Nice, but before we get into our main topic today, firstly, thank you all for listening. Please consider giving the podcast a like, a thumbs up, or a 5-star review. All that stuff really helps us out. Also, there are time codes down in the show notes below if you want to jump around to some specific cards or stuff like that. And also, we've been doing this for a while, but I should probably just tell people about it. There will also be a card gallery of every card we talk about in the show notes below. It links to a Moxfield site, and every card we talk about will be displayed there. So even though most of the cards we will try and read out, if there's any that we kind of skip over or anything like that, there will be images there to help you along if you want to see what the cards look like as we're talking about them. But okay, let's jump into our episode. Today, we are going to be talking about Conspiracies in Cube. And now, these are some of my favourite cards to play with, but because they're all about 10 years old now, which is a little bit daunting and a horrible reminder of this quick passage of time, and also importantly, because they're not on MickGo, a lot of players may not have had the chance to play with them. But they are awesome cards, and while definitely not for every cube, they really open up a lot of cool design decisions and can make for some really unique gameplay. James, what are your overall thoughts on Conspiracies in general?
Yeah, I think they're cool. Most of my experience with Conspiracies has been through cubes you have built, because I did not draft. I think, yeah, pretty much. But I've learned to love them. No, it's I didn't draft really any Conspiracy. It was I think the last one was maybe just as I started playing Magic. But yeah, I never really had the opportunity to draft much of that set. It does sound cool. But yeah, I think most of my experience has been in a couple of cubes. And I think there's some that are really, really cool. Looking through them for this episode, I was like, there are a bunch I would not put anywhere near a cube. And there are a bunch where, sure, maybe in the right cube if you're doing something interesting with them, you know? But they're certainly they're really unique. And they sort of challenge people's card evaluation skills, which is kind of interesting, right? At this stage in Magic, they've just made a lot of their designs, you know? And if you've been playing Magic a long time, you've played with so many different Magic cards that almost all new Magic cards you look at and you're like, oh yeah, it's like this Magic card or this other Magic card. I can use that as a framework to evaluate it. And often you can't with some of the really unique Conspiracies. You kind of can't do that, right? And that's quite cool, I think.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things we'll kind of get into in this episode is that one of the cool things about Conspiracies is they're very open-ended and they do reward people thinking outside the box a little bit. It rewards people who like drafting because a lot of some of them add constrictions to your draft, or they open up possibilities to draft. Let's actually get in and kind of talk about them in a bit more detail. So Conspiracies do come primarily from two sets, Conspiracy and Conspiracy Take the Crown. I'm sad you never got to draft them, James. They are some of my favourite drafting memories. They are like multiplayer, but it's like 20 life, best of one, like 40 card decks. It's very, very cool gameplay and was really, really a great draft environment. There have been a couple of Conspiracies released in Mystery Booster product. We're not really going to be touching on those just because they are more kind of like uncards, but hopefully we will get some more in the future. Like Conspiracy 3 is going to be tricky in a world where they can just make Commander Legends, but Commander Legends 3 Conspiracy, potentially that would be rad. But yeah, today we're going to be touching on the Conspiracies themselves from Conspiracy 1 and 2. There were some other cool Draft Matters cards, like we've talked about Cogwig Librarian on the podcast before. If you want a full episode where we talk about some of the other Draft Matters cards, do let us know, and maybe, just maybe, we'll be nice to you and give you that episode in the future. But Conspiracies as cards, these are effects that once you draft them, they sit in the command zone and they affect the game. Some add rules to cards that you choose before the game. Some change the way your whole deck works. There's a really bunch of cool options. Kind of like these feel sort of like precursors to companions, and they're an effect that you get in addition to your deck. And if you were playing around the time when companions were running rampant through draft and limited and standard and all that kind of stuff, you know how strong those effects can be. There are two types of conspiracies. First, we have regular conspiracies that sit face up in the command zone, and they change the way your deck works in a bunch of interesting ways. Let's give an example. First up, we have like weight advantage. This is a very solid example. It's a conspiracy that says, start the game with this conspiracy face up in the command zone. It reads, each creature you control assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So by drafting this card and choosing, again, with this card, you don't have to run the conspiracies. It is a deck building decision you get to make when you are building your deck. But this one card will affect the way your whole deck operates. And that's really cool. James, we kind of touched on, like, in our intro, kind of like how these cards open up so many different possibilities. Like, we're going to deep dive into all the examples that we think are playable shortly, but just as a card type that can affect the way your whole deck works, kind of how does that make you feel as like a drafter?
Yeah, I think they're cool. I think I really like the ones that make you do work, you know? I think they're really cool and interesting. I think the companions comparison is a really good one. And I love companions for draft. I think, yeah, I understand why, like, I think they get a bad rap because of constructed, right? But I think for draft companions, for me, are like a sort of all-time really good draft mechanic and perfect for cube. And I think the conspiracies are in a lot of ways sort of a more open-ended version of a companion, right? And yeah, I don't know. I think they're cool. I think, yeah, I like ones where you have to do work. Some of the ones that are a bit more generically just good, I think, are not so interesting, you know?
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah. And when we start doing like a ranking power ones, the generically good ones are the ones I was kind of teasing that are some of the most broken cards in Magic for limited. But we'll get onto those in a moment. Because the second types of conspiracies we want to touch on have the kind of special rule, hidden agenda. These also start the game in the command zone, but you have to name a card on them. Like if you were doing conspiracy draft because it was effectively best of one, you would just Sharpie the name on the card. But if you're playing in cube, you could just get a bit of paper, slip it into the sleeve, and you can change it each game, which is quite nice, like in between rounds and stuff, which is quite hot. And basically, this card is face down in the command zone, and it's a secret. Your opponent does not know about it. Then, when it's relevant, you can turn the conspiracy face up, and then it takes effect. So let's read one now. So we have Muzio's Preparations. This is a conspiracy with hidden agenda. That is what I just described. It says, start the game with this conspiracy face down in the command zone and secretly name a card. You may turn this conspiracy face up anytime and reveal the chosen name. Its rules text is, each creature you control with the chosen name enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So this is an effect that you get to add to a card for free. There is no mana required to do this. The cost is taking it in the draft and casting the name of the creature, and casting a creature with the name that you have written down. And that's one of the coolest things about conspiracies is that they add more magic to your magic. Like they add additional level of like complexity, and it's like this might not be the most powerful one on the face of it. It might not be the most powerful one, but it is a card that, in a way, can buff up a creature for free. Again, you don't have to spend any mana on it. Like imagine making your Isamaru a 1 mana 3/3. Whoa, game breaking. And the way that kind of hidden agendas generally work, like all the hidden agendas generally have a less of a game altering effect. But the secret plan part of them is awesome because your opponent doesn't know what you have named. And as I mentioned, you can name them. You can change the name in between games, like in between round or in between game 1 and 2. You can change the name of your creature to something else if you sideboard out that kind of stuff. And this is one thing where these do get better in cubes where you have multiples. We'll kind of get onto that in a little bit. But James, kind of like, you've played a couple of hidden agendas. I know in the past, kind of like, what is your opinion on these cards and the surprise nature that they kind of add to a cube as well?
Yeah, I think as a cube designer, as probably important to know. These are probably all better than you think they are on first reading,
yes,
you
definitely.
know, in terms of power level, and in terms of where you're meant to take them in the draft. Because they give you a benefit without taking up a slot in your deck. And that's actually pretty busted. And without giving anything up, right? You give up a draft pick and that's it. So even if you're not doing anything to, you know, particularly maximize these, you know, you don't have to be, you know, doing some combo nonsense with like, my guy gets a +1/+1 counter and it has persist and I can combo off. Like, yeah, that's cool and that will be good. You don't need to be doing that for this card to be a high pick. Like, I'm not saying you should like be spamming this pack 1, pick 1, but like, if there's not something exciting in the pack, you should basically take any of these hidden agendas. Even if it's, you know, something like a +1/+1 counter, you know, your Ragavan being a 3/2, that's a really big difference. And you just didn't have to give anything up to get that, you know, you just had to give up the draft pick. It will take one of your like B-level cards to be an A-level card. And the thing is, or it takes like a completely replaceable card to be a good card, which is kind of the same as just taking a good card, you know? So yeah, these are all strong. Personally, I would be inclined not to include them unless you're doing something specific with them. Because my feeling is that the good cards are already good cards. They don't need a +1/+1 counter. They don't need to, you know, there's like, they cost 1 less or they can watch them, whatever. You know, I don't think like Gut needs to be a 3/3, you know. I don't like, and they always just like, my best creature is even better, you know.
But just imagine a 3/3 broadside, James. Whoa.
I can never block the damn thing anyway. It doesn't. But yeah, no, I think. But I think if you are doing specific stuff with them, they can be really cool. And there are, I think, more interesting ones to encounter, right? For example, there's one which, like, Color Wash is a card. You can cast it for any color of mana. I think that card is, like, interesting because it gives you more decisions in the draft, right? You're not just making a good card better. You're getting to play a card outside of the colors that can normally cast it. Like, I had it in the last Treat Yourself cube we did, and I got I was playing like a Bolus of Citadel to show and tell in, but that meant I could also like just cast my Bolus of Citadel, and that's, you know, that's not like, you know, a particularly unique application, but it was really good, and it gives another angle to that card, right? I was like, oh, I can just vamp into Bolus of Citadel, right? I can go like the 1 Power Stone Bolus of Citadel. It's a nice little curve, you know. So yeah, I think some of them are interesting, like stuff like Haste, which is a bit more like contextual to the card, I think is interesting. Yeah, there's a good range here, I think.
No, definitely. And I think one of the things I think one of the keywords you mentioned there is flexible. These are some of the most flexible cards because they all, like, you don't have to draw them. They just sit there in the command zone. They will have, like, as soon as that card comes up that you've named, they will take effect. It's kind of like a... It's not as like game ending as your Kiki Jiki Splinter Twin combo, but it's still a cool combination that kind of is what I was saying before. It adds more magic to your magic. It kind of gives drafters more decisions, and it will reward people who kind of think outside the box a little bit and like try and find that cool synergy. Like James mentioned with Mizu's preparations that we mentioned, like we've played it in Auto Battler, and it is a payoff. It is how you persist combo. That's quite good. That's cool. And maybe there is a world where this is what we should have been doing with persist combos this whole time. Like running this card to try and make it work. Again, we'll get into conversations a bit later on kind of like things you have to consider when you're running these cards, because it is an additional type and effect. It is worth mentioning to your drafters if you are running Conspiracies, because it does affect the way that you draft and does affect the way you play games. We'll get into some more of the other things you need to consider in a little bit.
Yeah, I think my concern about the idea of like, oh, this is how we do persist combos is I think most of the time it doesn't end up with the persist combo player. It ends up with the like just it gets taken early because it's powerful and it goes in someone's beat down deck, you know?
Yeah, we'll run 4 of them then. It's fine. So the beat down player gets 4 of them. And yeah. So one thing it is worth mentioning with these hidden agendas is that Conspiracy was a regular draft format where you could draft multiples. And these did like the point of this was like with Mesia's preparations, you make the 2 mana 1/2 you have 4 of, you make them all 2/3s. So hidden agendas specifically do get better when you have multiples because it's card with the name. There are some things of like I've been toying around with this idea for ages because like there are some cards that make cards with names. Like there's like obviously there is Llanowar Elves, but there is a card that makes a card named Llanowar Elves. So there is some kind of cool stuff you can do there with names. It's a bit niche, and that's not what we're trying to not the point of today. But like I love these cards because it really does get my design brain. Like this plus this equals wow, and that's really cool, I think.
Yeah, I think I do quite like the idea of a cube where you really lean into these creature ones specifically, and all the creatures are kind of bad on their own, and you're trying to do some like janky 3-card combo stuff where they're all buffed up by these conspiracies, and maybe like. My Pilly Pala taps for mana and I can combo off that way or something, I feel like that could be a cool, like, niche cube.
I do like the sound of that. Maybe that's a conversation for us to have off air. But I think we kind of touched on our like, what conspiracies are good for. Let's actually talk about some actual conspiracies. Let's go over some more in some more detail. We're going to start with the generically super broken and strong ones. We're going to caveat this first part by saying that, like, these are technically some of the most, like, the first 3 we're going to be talking about anyway, are some of the most broken cards you can run in a cube. Like, legitimately, if you are running a cube that has all the broken cards, it has the highest power level, it has, like, Gleemax, and it has Initiative, and Monarch, which also came from Conspiracy, don't worry about it. If you're running all those broken cards, I think the first 3 we're going to talk about get in there. If you're building a normal powered cube, these do not get in. Like these would be too strong for the current Mitgo Vintage Cube or the Arena powered cube. James, would you agree with that?
Yes, I think certainly, like the first one we're going to talk about today, I think certainly, if it was in Powered Cube, it would be the best pack 1, pick 1 in Powered Cube. It probably wouldn't, it's not actually that close.
With that, do you want to read Backup Plan, James?
Yeah, for sure. So Backup Plan's the Conspiracy. So again, just start with it in the command zone. You don't have to put it in your deck. You don't have to do anything. It says, draw an additional hand of 7 cards as the game begins. Before taking your mulligan, shuffle all but one of those hands into your library. So basically, you look at 2 opening hands, you pick one you like. I'm not going to lie to you, Dan. I hate this card.
No,
this is obscenely powerful. Like, this will be, like, it's a force multiplier on the best things your deck can do, right? But in a powerful deck, this is, like, the biggest upgrade you can make. It just makes your average opening hand so much better. And normally I'm here for the broken stuff. Like, I quite like the cubes with, like, console and stuff. I think they're cool. I think it gives you fun upside. I recently ordered a copy of Contract from Below because I think it would be funny to put it in Powered Cube. That's normally where I'm at with the broken stuff. This, though, I think is actually broken in a really boring way.
Yep, I would agree. It is just generically unbelievably strong. You also still get to mulligan afterwards if you haven't found your perfect hand in 14 cards.
Yeah. And it doesn't give you, like, a cool story about the broken thing you did, right? Like the other broken cards do. It's just like, I just kind of win 5% more of the games than I would do otherwise without even having to, like, draw this card. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's a lot of really cool conspiracies. For me, this is not.
No, exactly. But, like, one of the reasons that I think it's important to have the conversation about these first 3 anyway, because this episode, from my end, is a pro-conspiracy episode. However, there are caveats because it's kind of like I used this example before we started recording. Like, technically, you can run Sol Ring in your Peasant Cube. You can run it in your Budget Cube. it doesn't mean that you should. It will warp the environment and just be super strong. And whoever has it will have an unbelievable advantage. And with this, you don't even have to draw the bugger. It is just there, giving you value. So yeah, so backup plan, insanely strong. The next one, I still think is very strong, but it does go in a specific deck. Backup plan is fantastic in any Magic the Gathering deck. The next one, Power Play, is more of a deck-specific card. So Power Play says, it is a conspiracy. It says, you are the starting player. If multiple players would be the starting player, one of those players is chosen at random. That means if 2 people have the card Power Play. But effectively, if you have this conspiracy that you don't have to spend any mana on, it is just a draft pick, and then it's in effect, you will always go first. Now, we saw how fantastic the Boros aggro deck was in the Arena Cube in our last episode. Imagine if it always went first, including if you won game 1. In game 2, you still go first, even if you won. Like, obviously, in like a control deck and that kind of stuff, this is not as strong of a Magic card. But knowing that you're always going to go first is an unbelievable advantage because, again, like if we're talking about this in the world where the cube is singleton, there is just one of these. So if you see this in the draft, you take it. You know in every game you're going first. That is, again, similar to backup plan, as James was saying, it is very strong, but it is quite generic as well. And that's kind of why it's grouped in this first section of ones we want to talk about and mention, but maybe don't push it, basically.
Yeah, this is really broken. I don't even think it's that deck specific. Like, yeah, probably the aggro deck maximizes it best. But the thing is, even if I'm playing a control deck, a bunch of my rounds I'm going to be playing against aggressive leaning decks, in which case it's still really, really important for me as the control player to be on the play, right?
Oh, well,
like,
yeah, nice.
Yeah, like, I don't know, if it's important for the aggro player to be on the play against the control player, the reverse is also true, right? It's a zero-sum game. I
never thought about hate drafting this, but I love that. Like, so maybe this is the answer to Boros aggro on Arena. Just everyone else take it first.
I'm not sure I'm willing to take the risk.
James, we're in a world where like Sanguine Evangelist is one of the most broken cards in Magic. We're in desperate times, my boy. We need to find some answers.
That's what I hear the numbers say, yeah.
Nice. But yeah. Let's move on to our kind of third of the trifecta of generically super strong, but not the most interesting. Like, the rest of them are really cool and make you have cool design decisions. These first 3 are they are just very solid and very good. Also, Power Play is an uncommon for Peasant fans. As is our next one, this is also technically an uncommon. Advantageous Proclamation is a conspiracy, and it says your minimum deck size is reduced by 5. This might seem counterintuitive, like why would I want less cards? I'll deck out quicker. But having less cards in your deck is a massive advantage. You are just drawing the best cards in your pool. You're going to have less chance of drawing like that 23rd card that you snuck in because you had to make playables, that kind of stuff. It just makes your deck more consistent. Just imagine if your deck was more consistent. That is what this gives you. Like, playing less cards is actually a good thing. It's the opposite of like, it's the opposite of you shouldn't play 41 cards because it makes your deck worse. Running less cards makes your deck better. And Advantageous Proclamation lets you do that for free.
Yeah, for sure. This is really powerful. It means you draw your best cards more often and you draw your worst cards never because they're in your sideboard. We already kind of play a bunch of cards which are basically doing this in a really small way, right? Like the baubles.
This is a more boring Urza bauble. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Like, sure, those cards have some synergies, but a large part of what they're doing is just making your deck smaller, essentially. They draw you into your good cards. This does the same thing without... you don't have to put it in your deck. It's just sitting there being powerful, making your deck more consistent. You should take it very highly if you put it in a cube.
Yeah, again, these are only for, like, if I'm honest, like LSV showing off to his mates. Like, it's that kind of, we are building the most broken stuff ever. And the only reason, the Mitgo Vintage Cube has done these seasons every now and then, where it's like, we're running Gleemax, we're running like the extra Lotus, whatever it's called, and like all the initiative cards. These would be there if these cards were programmed on Arena, or they would be in the conversation anyway if these were programmed on Arena. But because Conspiracy was a multiplayer format, it was never programmed into Mitgo. Message Daybreak Games if you want to.
You can message them, they will say no. Imagine trying to program these into Magic Online. Like, trying to get anything working on Magic Online, I imagine, is quite challenging. But trying to get these working would be a project, I think.
James, I'm a media darling. I don't know computers. I'll leave that to you to worry about. No, but yeah. Again, we want to talk about those because they are very powerful cards and they are conspiracies, and like also most of these effects are all like 10p. So there is a world where kind of like, oh, I'm building a budget cube, I'll throw in all the conspiracies. Again, that is the Soul Ring in a peasant environment effect, game warping. Don't worry about them. The ones we're going to go over now are the awesome ones. Strap in; these are fun. The first one we want to talk about is World Knit. This is a regular conspiracy. So you start the game with conspiracy face up in the command zone, and it says, as long as every card in your card pool started in your library or in the command zone, lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is like the optimal. This is a card you want to see in pack 1. Because at that point, you can build whatever you want. You have perfect mana for the whole draft. And you can take the strongest cards and speed splashy and all that kind of stuff. Like, it really lets you do whatever you want. It really opens the doors to give you the world. All that 5-color nonsense, you can do it. There is the flip side, which is where this card gets interesting. It's kind of like, it is this is the flip side to Advantageous Proclamation that we talked about a minute ago. Running, like, you have to run every card in your pool. All 45 cards, probably plus basic lands as well, to make a playable deck. And in the same way that running a smaller deck is better, running a larger deck is a disadvantage. This adds so many draft choices to your draft. If you see this early and you decide to commit to it, it is a truly unique experience. Like, taking a land rather than a mid card is probably a good decision with this effect in play, or like if you want to draft around it, because if you take lands, it means you don't have to run them from the basic land box to make playables and that kind of stuff. Like you still need a playable deck after this. Like if you take 45 permanents, you are then running 25 lands on top of that. You're going to have a 75 card or a 70 card deck if that's how maths works. But yeah, just this is like the most Timmy awesome I get to do a thing card I could possibly imagine, and I am super here for it. Like, this also does better in environments where multicolour is a thing. So like I have it in my Treat Yourself. I have a bunch of these in my Treat Yourself cube, primarily the colour washing ones, because it really lets you lean into the splashy nature of them. And in those environments, I think they really shine. James, what's your opinion and kind of experience with World Knit as a card?
Yeah, this looks really cool. I've not got to draft it yet. I always see it too late, you know? But I think if you see this pack 1, it could be really sweet. So the way I'm viewing this, right, is you're drafting like 5-color good stuff, probably. Because you've got to play every card, right? You're not going to have you're going to play a 70-card deck. They're not all going to be leaning in the same direction. You know, they're not. You're not going to have 45 spells doing the same synergistic thing. But you are but hopefully you do have. But because you don't care about colors, you're going to get some really great cards really late. And normally when we say that's the payoff for drafting 5-color good stuff, right? But we still can't play our like triple black card in that deck. We can do in this deck. And our deck's going to be super consistent. We're never going to be color screwed. Downside is we've got to play every card. And it's, I think it'll be interesting. Because normally the last few picks of a lot of the packs aren't real picks, right? And you just take whatever. When you're drafting this, you're going to be like really sweating about which of the 2 horribly unplayable cards left in the pack you want to take, because you're going to have to put it in your deck, and you will have a few cards in your deck which are really bad, but you're just hopefully trying to find some creative ways to get something out of them, you know, but the issue will be the cards you end up having to run which are sort of meant for a very specific deck in the cube, and you're not in that deck. Like, you know, you run you'll be running like Seething Song or something in a deck where it just doesn't make sense. And but the payoff for that is you're going to have your like 20 best cards are all going to be amazing, right? Because you're just going to get to take the actual best card out of every pack. Normally we say that, and it's mostly true for the decks which prioritize fixing, but it's not completely true, right? You still have to care about the mana costs. You don't if you draft this, and that's really powerful.
Yeah, I do love Wellnet is probably one of my favorite. Just like pack one, pick one, live the dream. So Wellnet was the mass color washing card from Conspiracy 1. Sovereign's Realm is the mass color washing card from Conspiracy 2. Take the Ground, Electric Boogaloo. Again, it is a conspiracy. You have to you start the game with it face up in the command zone. It reads, your deck can't have basic lands, and your starting hand size is 5. You exile a card from your hand. This turn, you may play basic lands from outside the game, and basic lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. So this is a similar effect to WorldKnit, in that it basically lets you play any colors that you want, but the restriction on a starting hand being less is a downside. And also importantly with this, you still have to make a playable deck. So this basically reads that you play with your whole pool. It's not just I get to play the best cards what I want. You still need to make 40 cards with no basics. So in a normal draft, you are seeing 45 cards. So really, you are just not playing 5 of them. You still need to make a 40-card deck out of it. So similar things to what we're saying about WorldKnit, in that the last couple of picks from a pack might be a bit ropey, but it can be worth it for this effect. Sovereign's Realm is another awesome card. It is a very different effect. This has drawbacks of obviously starting with a smaller hand. That is a drawback. However, the upside to this is that it's only your starting hand, so this gets really good with things like draw 7s or mass draw spells, because you can then draw up afterwards. You still get to play every card in your pool, and you can draw up afterwards. It's only starting hand is 5, not your overall hand size is 5, which is good. Also, you only have to exile it once, and then it says you can play the basic lands from outside the game. So that will work, I believe, with things like Azusa. If you're running effects that let you play more lands in a turn, you will always have lands available to you. And this still lets you do effectively the dream of, we are full Wooburg, we're doing everything in just a different way. What do you think about Sovereign's Realm, James?
I think this is the conspiracy I'm most excited to play with, actually. This one looks really cool. I think it's really powerful. But this is all just, I haven't played with the card yet. But I think in the right deck, it's really powerful. Because it's not just color washing you, right? It's saying you always draw the right ratio of lands and spells, When you have enough lands, you're only drawing spells. And that's really powerful. And I think the thing about your worst cards still being in your deck is slightly less extreme than WorldKnit. Not just because you do get to leave out your literal 5 worst cards, but also your bad cards are just those are the cards you're going to play as lands, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's fine. You'll have cards in your deck which you never play as lands, because they're your best cards, and you'll have cards which are just going to be lands 80% of the time, and maybe where you draw at late game and you've got enough mana, and then you try and find something to do with the spell, and that's okay. I think it's really powerful. Having said that, you start at 5 cards. That's obviously a huge downside. You can't just put this in any deck for that reason. But I think there are ways to mitigate it. You can stuff like draw 7s, I think, is probably the easiest way. That kind of just undoes the downside immediately. Also, I think the Azusa suggestion is really powerful, because that's actually card advantage, right? It's not just ramp, it's card advantage. It's kind of busted, honestly. You probably can't put Azusa in a cube that has this. I was actually going to put this in a dual commander cube I built, and then I was like, no, I want to put fast bond in back a cube, so I can't have this card. Like,
that'd be
really,
so good.
You just go turn 1 fast bond, play 19 lands out of exile.
That would be hot as hell. Okay.
Yeah, it might be a bit much. I think. But also just like big card draw, I think, is kind of good with this, right? I will say, like, you should probably try and avoid too many expensive cards. Like, it's gonna hurt every land you have to play, right? Because you're giving up a spell every time. So I think probably like one of the ways you can do this is say, I'm never going to play like more than my 4th land, and my curve's super low. And because that's so much card advantage, actually. Like, sure, you're down a bunch of cards initially, but it is card advantage to not have to play your 5th land, because it means your opponent is drawing like 0.6 of a spell a turn from their draw step, and you are drawing 1 spell a turn from your draw step, and that's really powerful. Like, that's how like the Delver decks in Legacy and Vintage, like the Xerox decks they call them, right? That's always how they got ahead on cards, right? They didn't play a bunch of actual card draw, but because they have a super low land count and a bunch of cantrips to fix them, they never had to play more than like 3 lands, right? And their opponents would flood and they wouldn't. But this is like that to the extreme, right? You never have to play another land past a certain point, which is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Also worth mentioning that a Sovereign's Realm bunch of wheels Dream Hall deck actually won my Cubert, won the Treat Yourself Cubert Cube Clash, and that sounds like everything I want to do in Magic. That sounds awesome. I need to get a picture of that deck. That looks phenomenal.
Sounds really sick, yeah. Because all your cards pitch to Dream Halls as well. That's nice.
Hell yeah. All right, well, let's get the ball rolling. We have a sort of color washing one, but for a smaller effect. Next up, we have Emissary's Ploy. It's a conspiracy, and before drawing your opening hand, you choose 1, 2, or 3. And you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast creature spells with converted mana cost equal to the chosen number. So I really like this one as well. This is a way more flexible than the other two. Like, so the other, like, World Knit and Sovereign's Realm are more all in when you're trying to do them. Like, you have to think a lot more about the draft and, am I going to do this? Am I going to make playables? Do I have enough like spells I want to run to make this worthwhile? With Emissary's Ploy, it's probably the freest of all of them, because, like, worst case scenario, if this is the last card you'd get, if this is pick 45, the worst case scenario is you just make your 3 drops easier to cast. Maybe you have like in your 3 drops some spells that have like 2 green pips in them. This just color washes them and makes your whole deck more, and makes that block of colors more consistent. That's the worst case. The best case is you take it earlier and you can then just take all the best 2 or 3 drops for a whole draft and be able to play them without any downside. Like, I had this recently in a Gruul deck, and all I was really using it for, like, I think I got it like relatively late in pack 3, and I was just using it to splash a couple of white creatures in my deck without ever having to run any white sources in my mana base. And that's really free. And, like, if I saw it earlier, I would have been way more greedy and gone to town on it. Like, I'm a big fan of Emissary's Ploy. I think if you're going conspiracies in a cube, I think this is a great one to add, because it's not as game-changing as, like, additional hands of 7. It's just a cool, unique effect that does make you think as well. It gives you everything you want from a conspiracy while not being too backbreaking, basically.
Yeah, I like this card in that it gives you more. It gives you options in the draft. I think it's very powerful. You should take it very early, I think. Even this version, because there's a version of this which is like a hidden agenda version, right, which just names a card. I think that card's very powerful. This is obviously even more powerful than that, I think. Because you can think about this as like, what's the best cheap creature you pass in the draft, right? It's like you spent your pick on that, but you did it ahead of time. And it's even better than that because, you get other ones of the same mana cost for free. And there's probably some pretty interesting things you can do with, like, imagine I'm like the classic, like, powerful red deck with all the busted 3s and 4s, and then I just get to play like Lanoir Elves, Findhorn Elves, Elvish Mystic. That sounds kind of great.
Yeah, without having to put a single green source in your deck. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, that's the thing that makes Rule good in these cubes, right? Is that they get to do that. They have to do a bunch of work and take a bunch of fixing, and their mana's often bad, and they have to give up a lot. And with this, you can just not, You just get to play, like, 16 mountains and have a nice time.
Actually, yeah. Specifically, the chunky Boros deck that's running a bunch of Ancient Tombs. You don't, just not having to splash any mana for your early ramp is phenomenal. Yeah. I think this is a very cool card. I'm really high on it. The next one is a card we talked about earlier. Weight Advantage is the one that makes each creature you control assign combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. And this is very much a build round. Importantly, it doesn't mean it if you are doing a walls deck, the walls do not lose defender. That is important to remember. But it's not hard to see a world where you can make this deck effectively work in a cube, like Courser of Crufix being a 3-mana 4/4. Phenomenal. We love that. Or Fanatic of Ronus being a 2-mana 4/4. Great. Ledger Shredder, 2-mana 3/3. Like there's enough of kind of like creatures that have a high booty that like you could make this a package in a cube. You could make like you probably still lean into walls as well in some way, or maybe have that be there. Like in the Conspiracy, there was a walls deck that kind of took advantage of this. But this is way more build around and more niche. But I think, again, from a design space point of view, this is a card that kind of gets me like, ooh, is there a world I could work with this? Like, does Cube Cobra have a way of showing me how many creatures in my cube have higher toughness than power? That kind of thing. Like, it at least kind of like gets my brain working, and that's one of the reasons that I like this card.
Yes, I think this one's cool. I like the ones that not every deck wants, and this is certainly in that category. Compared to, like the previous one is just good, right? This one is contextually good. I think that's more interesting. It's a shame it doesn't let your walls attack. I really want an excuse to put the stupid 0-30 wall from Avatar into a cube.
Yes.
But I guess this isn't it. It seems good. You probably don't have to like add tons of 0/5s to your cube to make this good. Like, there are just enough of those creatures that have like good defensive stats, and this turns them into beatdown creatures, and that's kind of powerful.
Gilded Goose is a 1-mana 2/2 flyer. Whoa, that
Busted.
Is phenomenal. Yeah. So one note on these: the Conspiracy is very much before Fire Design, like a long time before Fire Design. So imagine the Modern Horizons 3 versions of these cards. It would also give you a treasure while letting your defender creature attacks. But anyway, we can dream. Gavin, get on it, please. But so kind of like the cards we just touched on: Wild Knit, Sovereign's Realm, Emissary's Ploy, and Weight Advantage. Those are kind of like deck constraint ones. The next one we're going to go over are mainly hidden agendas. And these affect individual cards. And as we kind of mentioned, hidden agendas generally have a less impactful effect than obviously changing how your whole deck works. But they are way more flexible because you can kind of take them and see where it leads you. The first one to touch on is the one that James been alluding to in the episode is Unexpected Potential. This is a hidden agenda. Again, that means you name a creature before the game, write it on it, and then this starts face down in the command zone, and then you can flip it up at any point. The rules text of this Conspiracy is you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast spells with the chosen name. So of all of the Conspiracies, of all the hidden agendas, I think this is the strongest because it, as we've alluded to, it basically just means that one time you can splash any good card. Like, we've seen in Powered Cube people in Dimir control decks splashing Fourth Aeolingus and having to take lands to make that work. Imagine if you didn't have to take lands. Imagine if just in your control deck you just splash that Fourth Aeolingus or that Minskin Boo for free with this card. This is one of the ones that kind of like I really like because it really does. It will never be the same card every time, and that is cool. It is a kind of a combination card in quotation marks there, but it's open-ended. And this is, for me, the most open-ended. This is the most free to take early on in a draft and just know that at some point I'm going to take it, awesome spell, and I'm going to be able to cast it. And I really like that.
Yes, I think this is very powerful. You should take it very early. Absolutely. I think this actually reminds me a little bit of Cogwork Librarian in a weird way, because so I think everyone passes Cogwork way too late as well. I think you should take them quite aggressively early on. And this, I think, would be the same in that what Cogwork lets you do when you take a Cogwork Librarian, you're taking the best card you would have had to pass later on in that draft, right? Is the value of that Cogwork Librarian. This is like the best, and like the best card you'd have had to pass because you were taking another card out of the pack. This is like the best card you'd have to pass because of color requirements, right? So again, it's actually more important if you take it early because if you're starting off blue-white and then you draft a good blue-white deck and then you see this in pack 3, well, you only have pack 3 to pick up a powerful card to splash, right? And you might just not see anything that's that exciting. But if you take this early, this just gives you so much flexibility. And it also lets you pivot really easily in the draft, right? Like, say I take, like 4 Failingus, great example, right? Say I take 4 Failingus, pack 1, pick 1, plan to draft Boros. I take this, pack 1, pick 2, and then Boros isn't that open. It's way less painful to me to pivot out of the Boros deck now and go and draft whatever the hell I want, right? Normally I might be like, Boros isn't feeling that open, maybe I'll draft like blue-white and splash it, Whereas if I've got this card, I can draft green-black and still play the 4 Failingus, right? Really powerful card. Take it early. I actually like this a lot more than some of the other hidden agendas because it lets your deck do something it couldn't do before. I think that's more interesting than letting your deck do the same thing more efficiently with ones like my creature has a counter or has haste or costs 1 less or whatever. Those ones are just like, my best creature is better. This is like, I get to play a card I couldn't play before, and it gives me options. I quite like that.
Yeah, I'd agree. I Unexpected Potential is one of my favorite conspiracies. I think it's awesome for those reasons. Keeping the ball rolling. Next up, we have Summoner's Bond. This is a double agenda. Ooh, so Conspiracy 2 introduced double agendas. So with this, you start the game with this conspiracy face down in the command zone and secretly name 2 different creatures. You may turn the conspiracy face up anytime to reveal the chosen names. This one reads, whenever you cast a creature spell with one of the chosen names, you may search your library for a creature card with the other chosen name, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. So the base level of this is it adds draw a card to any 2 creatures in your deck. As a base level, that's fine. But it gets a lot better if you're doing cool things with creatures. Like, I think I mentioned Kiki Jiki Deceiver Exarch earlier. With this, you cast one, you immediately go and get the other one. That's pretty good. And I think this is, again, all these do need to be in environments where you can support conspiracies, where it fits in with what the cube is doing. But like, if you're doing creature combos, that is a nice little lever to run with it. Like, it doesn't have to be as game-winning as that. Kind of like, I think the last time I ran this, I had Academy Rector. That's the creature that when it dies, you go and get a big enchantment and put it into play. I was running Academy Rector with Trumpeting Carnosaur. That is a big creature that for 3 mana you can have it deal 3 damage to a creature. So I was using Trumpeting Carnosaur and Academy Rector as a way of cheating Omniscience into play. So if I cast one, I get the other one, and then I can kill it and go and get Omniscience. That is a really kind of dumb but cool thing that was only really possible because of Summoner's Bond. And it has a lot more utility than like this one is also quite open-ended as well, and it can really kind of like what cool things can I do? So like if it just turns your Minsk and Boo, or no, if it just goes your gut gets your other good red aggressive creature, then okay, that is the base level of it. But like, yeah, it does open things up to being cool as well, and I do like that.
Yeah, this is very powerful. It's even if you're not doing a combo thing, it's even better than draw a card, right? It draws one of your better creatures from your deck, right? You're not going to name a filler creature with this. You're going to name 2 of your best creatures, assuming you're not doing a combo thing. And if you're doing a combo thing, it seems kind of broken. It seems really powerful. Yeah, no, I'd say if you're doing this sort of on the path fair, I would say lean towards naming creatures that are going to be good at different stages of the, like sort of throughout the game. There's kind of a dream, I guess, where you name like Llanowar Elves and a 3-drop, and then you go Llanowar Elf, get my 3-drop. But it's so bad when you go 3-drop and it goes and gets your Llanowar Elf,
exactly.
right? It doesn't matter. So I think I would like lean towards just naming cards that stay relevant throughout the game. Like kind of a nice one, if say you're playing blue, you name like Snapcaster Mage and I don't know, Malcolm, just like they're good on turn 2, they're good late in the game, like just keep it, make sure you're always getting a value, you know. But there's obviously the upside is way higher than that, right? The upside is you have creatures that combo.
No, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this is a cool one. There's 4 that we've kind of bunched together because they kind of do a similar thing, so we kind of want to touch them all together. These are all also hidden agendas. There's Brago's Favor, which has spells with the chosen name cost 1 generic less to cast. There's Immediate Action, that gives the creature you name haste. There's Muzio's Preparation, that's the one we talked about earlier, which makes the creature you name enter with an additional counter on it. And there's Secrets of Paradise, which says creatures you control with the chosen name have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, so it turns them into Birds of Paradises. And basically, outside of the Persist combos with Muzio's Preparations, these are all cards that just make one specific card in your deck slightly better. Like there are some cool things you dislike, like turning your Thraben Inspector into Birds of Paradise is quite nice. But like they're all pretty solid, but very kind of fair. And kind of when we're at this level, there's the conversation of like, are these worth adding, basically? If you're not doing like these get much better in decks with multiples, because if you can have like 3 creatures that come in with haste, or 3 creatures that all cost 1 generic less, or 3 creatures that are now Birds of Paradises, that's really interesting and very strong. So I think these ones are more for cubes with multiples, but I am saying this. I do run these. I run a bunch of these in my Treat Yourself cube because I want the. So for context, in that cube, everyone starts with a Cogwag Librarian. So there are 8 Cogwag Librarians in the draft, and the dream is the Cogwag Librarian beatdown deck. Hasn't come together yet, but let me dream. Would you go along with that, James? Or like, what do you think about these hidden agendas specifically?
So surprising, no one's drafted it yet, isn't it?
I'm forcing it next time, okay? I'm just saying it. And I'm adding 10 more.
Yeah, you all start with one, and then there's like 20 more in the cube until someone actually drafts the damn thing. These ones, for me, I'm not that fussed about. I think the cogwork idea is cool, and that's a really good reason to run them. But I do think you need a reason to run these. Like, not even that they're not powerful, they're powerful, you should take them early. Like, this, spells with chosen name cost 1 left. That makes your, like, best 2-drop into a cracked 1-drop, right? It's a good card, you take it very early. But I don't think it's a cool card, to me, if you're not doing a thing. Because... your good cards are already good. It doesn't let you do something different that your deck couldn't do before. These are just making your deck more efficient. I guess like haste is maybe has a little bit more context, but still, like, cool. Your good like beat downy creature now has haste. It sounds very powerful, but I don't think it's that interesting. Like the cards are already powerful, I guess maybe there's something interesting you can do with the tapping for mana one. Like your Magda tapping for mana is kind of cool. Because you get like treasures on the way through. But yeah, in general, I'm like, I could take them or leave them with these ones.
No, unless you're doing something with them, these kind of feel like, how in every set review there is like the rare cycle of lands, which are all fine, but not exciting. These fall under the, if I don't have a use for them, is just another good card worth the slot in my cube more. With all these conspiracies, there's a conversation of like, what are they adding? Like, they're not creatures. You can't attack with them. You can't kill your opponent with them. So therefore, we're adding them because they add a cool effect. And once we get to this level, we have to evaluate the effect to make sure it's worth inclusion in a cube. And you have to be doing something with them. And if that is multiples, then that is at least something. One final note on these: we have actually played a bunch with these in the auto battler. They are like level ups, and they are cool tools you can use for more custom environments. But in that environment, that is what they are used for. Like they are kind of like gameplay pieces. So they're cool cards to kind of remember if you're trying to do like build your own Dan or something like that. Remember these exist. They are cool cards, but just a little caveat wanted to mention there. Just jumping back to the multiples thing, one card that only works in that environment is Secret Summoning, but there I think it is very cool. This is a hidden agenda that says whenever a creature with a chosen name enters the battlefield under your control, you may search your library for any number of cards with that name, reveal them and put them into your hand and shuffle. So this effectively is like a build your own Squadron Hawk. Again, if you have multiples in a cube, that is very cool and very interesting and a very powerful effect. But if you don't have that, in an environment where there's no multiples, this is kind of unplayable. Actually, no, it is unplayable.
Yeah, pretty much. I was thinking about, because there's cards like Spy Kit, which change the names of cards on the battlefield. I don't think there's anything. This in ETV so doesn't really work with that. I don't think there's any way to like. There's not a card I can think of which really abuses this if you don't have multiples. But maybe I'm missing something.
If you can flicker it, it lets you shuffle your library. If that's helpful.
Yeah, it's not exciting.
That feels very. I'm playing Legacy, I'm casting Brainstorm, and I'm shuffling. But anyway, yeah. Secret Summoning is a cool card, but this really drives home it needs to be in the right environment. And then the last one we wanted to touch on, just because it's cool, is a card called Double Stroke. It is a hidden agenda. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell with a chosen name, you may copy it. You may choose new targets for the copy. So this has the very high potential upside of if you're doing a big spells deck where you're copying spells, like taking 2 extra turns instead of 1 seems really good, or double Cruel Ultimatum, or with ways of recasting your spells. Like, say you put Lightning Bolt name with this, and you go Bolt, copy Bolt with this, Snapcaster Mage, Bolt, copy again. That's 12 damage. That seems pretty good. There are some very strong instant or sorceries, and again, for me, this is more in line with, I guess, maybe Unexpected Potential, but not as free in that it kind of like. You will run it, your deck will have instant or sorceries. It's a fine card to take early. Like, even like a double kill spell is pretty nice. I think this is a cool one, and there are other conspiracies kind of that care about instant or sorceries. This one seems the most playable in a regular cube. Kind of, what do you think about Double Stroke, James?
This is, I think, a very powerful card in any deck. It's not hard to have some spells which work well with this. I personally wouldn't worry about stuff like Cruel Ultimatum. I think, if you're casting Cruel Ultimatum, it's probably winning you the game anyway. But yeah, obviously, like copying a Time Walk or something is pretty busted. But even, you copy your Preordain or your Lightning Bolt, you're going to be very happy with it. It is going to be incredibly broken in any Storm adjacent deck because if you recast for spells, you keep copying it, right? Like, if you're like this in an Underworld Breach is kind of messed up.
Oh, James.
Yeah. Like, or even just like, imagine you name Manamorphose, and then your Manamorphose is like +2 mana of any color and draws you 2 cards. Like, that's so broken. And then you just keep casting it.
I think I've truly now found the difference between the two of us, James. Mine was, I want to do Cruel Ultimatum. Yours was the probably correct one of saying, I'm going to do Manamorphose.
But do you know how many Manamorphoses I'm going to cast in one turn?
That does sound right, yeah.
Yes, which sounds really cool, and I'm here for buffing Storm decks. So maybe there's that's something you can do.
No, that is sweet. Yeah, and as I kind of touched on, there are a bunch more conspiracies out there. These were the ones that we think are that could see potentially Q play in the right environment, and so it's very easy to find the rest of them. Just search for conspiracy as a card type in Scryfall; they will all come up. These ones, I think, are a good selection. I do know that we have been mostly waxing lyrical about a bunch of these conspiracies, let's quickly touch on the downsides, and because we do need to consider all things before we start adding a whole nother card type to a cube. Some potential downsides. James, jump in on these if you kind of agree or disagree with these. But kind of like a lot of people will have played with conspiracies before, but a growing number will not have played with conspiracies before. Whenever you add something outside the norms to a cube, I do think you should explain that. And any time that list gets longer is a downside, because it's like, oh, for me, it's like, oh, my regular cube, okay, it's snow basics. Oh, okay, there's conspiracies. Oh, okay, there's companions as written. Like, I don't have conspiracies in my regular cube. I have it in my other cube. But kind of like, if I added them, that would be like a tertiary layer of things I need to remind people. And anything like that, I do think any additional thing like that, for some cube groups, is completely fine. For newer cube groups, or if you're playing with new people for the first time, it is something you need to consider when you're thinking about adding cards like this.
Yeah, for sure. Because it's not brilliant for the experience of playing your cube for the first time, right? If there's like this massive list of stuff that is you need to remember about how this cube specifically works. And yeah, like I don't think this is saying you shouldn't add conspiracies, but I think it is worth bearing in mind that each new thing you add to that list of stuff you have to explain is a cost, and only add it if it's actually adding something to the experience.
Exactly. And one other thing that we have alluded to and we have touched on in quite a lot of the cards we've reviewed, conspiracies generally get worse the later in the draft they are opened, because conspiracies are better the more time you have to take advantage of them. Like when we talked about unexpected potential, the ability to see more cards in order to find that broken splash, the more time you have, the better the splash is going to be. And that really ramps up with things like WorldKnit or Sovereign's Realm. Like, we've done a bunch of my Treat Yourself cubes where I've taken WorldKnit towards the end of Pack 2 and realized in Pack 3 it's not doable. And that sucks, but these are things that you kind of have to consider. These are cool game engine cards, but in some drafts, they can be opened, but they might not see play or they might be dead. And that's definitely something that in like larger cubes, I think is easy, where you have more flex spots. In like a tight 360, these get a little bit tricky to kind of like squeeze in. Kind of like, would you go along with that, James?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, but this isn't unique to conspiracies, right? This is kind of an issue with just build-arounds in general. Like, you know, if Oath of Druids is opened in Pack 3, that card is not getting played, right? So I think it's fine, but you just probably need to be conscious of how many cards in your cube are like that, because there is kind of a limit, right? You can't just be on all build-arounds. Actually, maybe you can. That cube sounds
maybe
fun,
that is maybe that's what we should build next. Hold on.
Yeah.
But yeah, and like I think the final major downside for me anyway is that these were designed for multiplayer. Conspiracy was a multiplayer format, and as I touched on earlier, the Monarch comes from Conspiracy, a famously fair mechanic. The Initiative comes from multiplayer formats. These are in that bracket of they are game-breaking effects, and that it's up to you out there listening as a cube designer to work out if that fits with the environment that you want to build. If you're just building a cube that is kind of just good spells from all of Magic, maybe not the most powerful, but just it's generically good stuff, these might not fit in there. Like, I don't have a bunch of conspiracies in my regular cube. I have these in my Treat Yourself cube where I want players to do cool things. I want people to find combos between them. What conspiracies are good at, and we're kind of flipping it back around to the awesome side of conspiracies, is that most of them are open-ended. Like, yes, Weight Advantage does the same thing every draft, but things like Unexpected Potential, things like Emissary's Ploy, even things like Sovereign's Realm or WorldKnit, the ones that kind of color wash your deck. Like, yes, you're building a WorldKnit deck, but no two WorldKnit decks are ever going to be the same because of the draft that got you to the point of actually playing it. Like, no drafts are the same, and just having the ability to take the best cards from them, or weave that line, or walk that line and try and make a functional deck. For me, they add so much replayability to a cube, and for me, that's one of the main reasons that I like them.
Yes, I think they're cool, and I think they lead to unique draft experiences. Well, all the good ones do anyway. So I'm really down for trying them in more cubes.
No, sick. And like, I think one last point that we should touch on is that some people in the past I know have done conspiracy packages. So like basically every Christmas or something like that, just shuffle in 20 of their favorite conspiracies into a cube draft as a way of spicing it up. That can be a nice little thing you can do to add some variety. If you're in a cube group that has one cube you draft all the time for someone's birthday or for Christmas or something like that, shuffle in some of the best conspiracies and give it a go. It can add a new level of randomness to a draft environment to make it interesting for that one time. And again, these might not be cards that you want to do every time. Again, I don't have them in my main cube. I have it in my spicy side piece cube. That's a terrible way of describing it, but I'm keeping it in the episode, you know what I mean? But that's where I think they really shine, in just like, if you want to do something cool and want to do something different, and if you want to reward people for thinking outside the box, I think these are some of the funnest cards you can include in a cube.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just like here for most things that add variety to the draft.
Yeah, I so wish they'd make a Conspiracy 3, because there's so much design space left undug for adding more decisions to the draft. Like, these affect the draft in terms of like, oh, what am I going to combine with it? But yeah, there's a bunch of other cards in Conspiracy that are awesome draft matters cards that there's a bunch more things they can do with it, and also push power level here and there, because again, this is pre-Fire Design, this is before Modern Horizons was even a dream, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, I think there's a bunch of stuff they can do, and I would love them to do it. All right, marvelous. So that's going to do it for our main topic, but we have a nice little bonus section for today. So yeah, at the weekend, at time of recording, James was up in Cube Clash representing the podcast. Yeah, obviously we had Josh from Cube Clash on the podcast, but James, talk to me. Did you have a lovely time?
I certainly did. Yeah. Cube Clash has been great fun every single time I've attended it. This was certainly no exception. I got to draft some cool cubes. I drafted 100 Ornithopters, which was is always a good time, and a more sort of legacy power level cube, which was good fun. Met a bunch of super interesting people. Thank you to the listeners who came up and said hello. That was really cool. And yeah, always a fun time. I didn't win very much, but that's fine. I went 2 and 4 for the day. So officially washed as a Cuba, I guess. I drafted, 100 Ornithopters. I have an issue where I can just only draft like janky 5-color combo decks now. Because they're so much fun, you know? I first picked a Goblin Bombardment and just kind of committed to the thing. And I ended up with, I could combo, but the issue was if my combo pieces went to the graveyard, I couldn't really get them back. So it was all a bit fragile, you know? If Goblin Bombardment ever got countered or removed or discarded in any way, there was problems. My backup win condition was, do you know Thunder of Unity?
That is not one that's come across me. What does Thunder of Unity do?
It's like a Mardu saga where the first chapter is you draw 2, lose 2, and then the second and third are like you have like impact tremors for a turn.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but I ran into issues where like that was the only win con I had left. In one of my games, there was my opponent just kept bouncing it before I got to the second part, and I just was slowly running out of cards and decking myself. So I kept having to draw 2 in the hopes of finally getting to the to the second chapter, and then they bounced it again. So that was savage. Yeah, the deck did get to do its thing a fair amount of games though, and it was cool. So I had like Goblin Bombardment with Blood Bond March. It's like a Golgari enchantment where when you cast, in this context, an Ornithopter, everyone brings all their Ornithopters back to play. So if you have that and bombardment, then you go like sack all your Thopters, play a Thopter from hand, they all come back, sack them all again.
I was wondering why that card sounded familiar, and it's because I've lost to it in your 2-bit version of the Ornithopter Cube.
Sure, makes sense. Yeah. So that deck was fun. And then the second cube I drafted sort of Grixis good stuff in the sort of legacy power level cube. And also managed to 1-2 with that one, which was, I didn't think the deck was bad, to be fair. My opponents were good. We had some really good close games. And yeah, came out on the wrong end of some of them, but I was fine. It was a good cube. And yeah, the games were like very close and interactive and long. There's some good grinding going on in that one for sure.
Nice. Well, don't worry.
But yeah, super fun weekend overall. Also, just every time I go to Cube Clash, I'm really struck by like all of my opponents at Cube Clash are like almost like really lovely, and it has not always been my experience of Magic tournaments, throughout the years of playing Magic. I feel like the Cube Clash crowd are really sound, and I'm down for playing more of those events,
Yeah, they've always been awesome, and they've always been greatly organised. Yeah, we love the guys at Cube Clash, and yeah, bring on Cube Clash 4. And James, don't worry, we'll organise a cube soon, and you can beat us all to make yourself feel better.
It's fine. I've got over it.
Yeah. Good man. Nice. All right, awesome. So that's going to do it for today. James, pleasure, man. Thank you very much for the chat.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Nice. And thank you all very much for listening. Do give the podcast a 5-star review, tell a friend, all that good stuff, whatever you can do. Greatly helps us out, grow the podcast, and do more cool and interesting things. Until next week, it's goodbye from me, and it's goodbye from James, and we'll see you all soon. Goodbye.